Yes, one tomato plant, 300 tomatoes. Not a typo, not a trick, 300 tomatoes from a single plant, in your backyard, in a pot, or even on a small raised bed.
I know what you're thinking. That sounds insane. But stick with me for the next few minutes, because by the time this video is over, you'll know exactly how to do this yourself, starting today. And here's the part that's going to make you a little angry. This isn't complicated. This isn't expensive. You don't need a greenhouse. You don't need a chemistry degree. The only reason most people don't grow tomatoes like this is because nobody ever told them how. Farmers know, commercial growers know, and they'd rather you keep buying tomatoes at the store for $3 a pound. But today, that stops. Let's get into it.
Before we talk about anything else, before soil, before fertilizer, before any secret trick, you need to pick the right tomato, because the variety you choose decides your ceiling before you even plant a seed. Most people grab whatever's at the garden centre. Big red tomatoes on the label, looks good, take it home. And that's fine, if you want average results. But if you want 300 tomatoes, you need an indeterminate tomato variety. Here's the difference, and this is important. There are two types of tomato plants, determinate and indeterminate. Determinate tomatoes, sometimes called bush tomatoes, they grow to a set size. They produce all their fruit at once and then they stop. They're done, finished. You get one big wave of tomatoes and that's it for the season. Indeterminate tomatoes, they never stop growing. They just keep climbing, keep flowering, keep producing all the way until the first frost kills them. If you live in a warm climate, some indeterminate plants will produce for 2, even 3 full years. So right there, that one decision, determinate versus indeterminate, is already the difference between getting 40 tomatoes and getting 300. Now, which specific varieties give you the biggest harvests? Here are the top 3. Number 1, Sun Gold cherry tomatoes. This is the king of high production. One Sun Gold plant, properly cared for, will produce hundreds of small golden tomatoes all season long. They're sweet, they're beautiful, and the plants are incredibly vigorous. If you want to blow people's minds, grow Sun Gold. Number 2, Sweet Million cherry tomatoes. The name says it all. Clusters of small red tomatoes covering the plant all season. Extremely disease-resistant, which means less work for you. Number 3, Juliet tomatoes. A little bigger than a cherry, smaller than a beefsteak. Juliet plants are absolute workhorses. They produce firm, crack-resistant fruit for months straight. Home gardeners have reported harvesting well over 200 tomatoes from a single Juliet plant in one season. Pick any one of these and you're already ahead of 90% of backyard gardeners.
Okay, now here's where it gets good. Because choosing the right variety gets you to the starting line. The method is what gets you to 300. Commercial tomato growers, the ones supplying grocery stores and restaurants, they follow a system, a very specific, very intentional system that most home gardeners have never been taught. And it comes down to 3 things: structure, airflow, and signal. Let me explain each one. Structure means how you train the plant to grow. Most backyard gardeners let their tomato plants grow wild. Branches shooting out in every direction, leaves everywhere, a big tangled mess. It looks impressive, but it's actually killing your yield. Here's what farmers do instead. They use a technique called single stem training, sometimes called the cordon method. You pick one main stem, just one, and you train that single stem to grow straight up, tall and strong, sometimes reaching 8, 10, even 12 feet by end of season. Everything else, every side branch gets removed early on. I know, we'll talk about those side branches in just a second because that is one of the most debated topics in tomato growing, but stay with me. When you train to a single stem, the plant stops wasting energy on growing leaves and branches. All of that energy, every bit of it, goes directly into making fruit. More fruit, bigger fruit, faster fruit. That's structure. Airflow is the second piece. Tomatoes hate being crowded. When leaves are piled on top of each other, moisture gets trapped, disease spreads and pests move in. Farmers space their plants wide, sometimes 5 to 6 feet apart, and they remove lower leaves as the season goes on to keep air moving around the plant. At home, you don't need 6 feet, but give your plant at least 3 feet of space from anything else. And once the plant hits about knee height, start removing the leaves from the bottom 12 inches of the stem. Just pull them off. This alone will dramatically reduce disease problems and keep your plant healthy for the whole season. Signal is the third piece, and this is the one that really separates beginners from expert growers. Tomato plants respond to signals from their environment. When a plant feels stress, when it thinks its survival is at risk, it does one thing. It makes more fruit, because fruit means seeds. Seeds means survival. The plant's entire mission in life is to reproduce, and when it senses danger, it accelerates that mission. Farmers trigger this response on purpose, and here's how you can do it at home. When your tomato plants are young, right after transplanting, do not water them every single day. Water deeply once, then wait. Let the top inch or two of soil dry out completely, then water deeply again. This cycle of stress and relief trains the roots to grow deep and strong, and it signals the plant to start producing more flowers faster. This works. It has been tested over and over again. A plant that gets moderate water stress early in its life will outproduce a plant that gets babied with daily watering every single time.
All right, let's talk about feeding your tomatoes, because this is where most home gardeners make a very expensive mistake. They go to the store, they see a bright bag with a picture of a tomato on it, they buy it, they use it all season, and they wonder why their tomatoes are disappointing. Here's what the bag doesn't tell you. Tomatoes need different food at different stages of their life. What a young tomato plant needs is completely different from what a flowering plant needs. And if you're feeding the same thing the whole time, you're either slowing down your harvest or you're stopping it completely. Here's the breakdown. In the first 4 weeks after transplanting, your tomato plant is a teenager. It's focused on one thing: growing bigger. At this stage, you want a fertilizer that is higher in nitrogen. Nitrogen is what builds leaves and stems and roots. It's the building block of plant structure. A balanced fertilizer, something like a 10-10-10 or a 5-5-5, works perfectly here. If you want to go organic, fish emulsion is excellent at this stage. Mix it with water, pour it around the base of the plant once every 2 weeks. But here's where most people go wrong. They keep using that same high nitrogen fertilizer once the plant starts to flower. And nitrogen, wonderful as it is for growth, will actually tell your plant to keep making leaves and stop making fruit. You'll have the most beautiful, lush, dark green tomato plant in the neighborhood and almost no tomatoes. Once you see the first flowers appear, switch immediately to a fertilizer that is lower in nitrogen and higher in phosphorus and potassium. Look for something like a 5-10-10 or a 3-15-15 on the label. Phosphorus feeds the flowers and the fruit. Potassium builds disease resistance and improves flavor. And here's a completely free fertilizer trick that farmers have used for decades: crushed eggshells. Tomatoes love calcium. Lack of calcium is the #1 cause of blossom end rot, that ugly black bottom you sometimes see on tomatoes. Every 2 weeks, take a handful of dried, crushed eggshells and work them into the soil around your plant. Free, easy, and it works remarkably well. One more tip: when your plant is in full fruit production, water it with a solution of 1 tablespoon of Epsom salt per gallon of water once a month. Epsom salt is magnesium sulfate. Magnesium is a core part of chlorophyll, which is how your plant turns sunlight into energy. More energy means more fruit production. It sounds too simple. It isn't.
Now, we have to talk about suckers, because if you search this topic online, you will find people who are absolutely passionate, sometimes even angry about which side they're on. So, let's settle it. First, what is a tomato sucker? A sucker is a new shoot that grows out of the joint where a branch meets the main stem. That joint is called the axil. When a sucker first appears, it looks like a tiny little branch trying to push its way out. If you leave it alone, it grows into a full branch and eventually into what is essentially a whole second plant growing off the first one. Here is the reality. Both sides of the debate are right. It just depends on what you're trying to do. If you are growing an indeterminate tomato variety and your goal is maximum fruit production with strong, healthy plants, you should remove most suckers, especially early in the season. Here's why. Every sucker you let grow takes energy from the main stem. If you let 20 suckers grow, you now have a plant spending its energy in 20 different directions. You get a huge plant, you get a lot of green, but your fruit production drops, your fruit size drops, and your plant becomes much more susceptible to disease because the airflow is terrible. Remove suckers when they are small, less than 2 inches long. At that size, you can snap them off with your fingers. Clean, fast, no tools needed. Once they get bigger, you'll need scissors or pruning shears, and you increase the risk of introducing disease to the wound. Here is the exception, and this is important. Do not remove the sucker that grows just below the first flower cluster. That sucker is special. Let it grow into a second stem. Now you have a 2-stem plant, still controlled, still efficient, but with significantly more fruit-producing capacity. Many expert growers use this 2-stem method as their standard approach and report excellent results. Now, if you are growing a determinate variety, a bush tomato, do not remove any suckers at all. Determinate plants produce their fruit on the side shoots, so removing suckers means removing your harvest. With determinate varieties, just let the plant do its thing. So, the answer to the sucker question is know your variety and know your goal. For indeterminate, high production growing, remove suckers early and often, except that first one below the flower cluster. That's your bonus stem.
Let's bring everything together, because at this point you have more tomato growing knowledge than most people will ever have. Here's your simple action plan. Step 1. Choose an indeterminate variety. Sungold, Sweet Million, or Juliet. Go to your local garden centre or order seeds online. This is your foundation. Step 2. Plant in full sun. Tomatoes need at least 8 hours of direct sunlight every single day. This is non-negotiable. No method in the world overcomes a bad sun location. Step 3. Plant deep. When you transplant your tomato seedling, bury it up to its neck, leaving only the top few sets of leaves above soil. Tomatoes grow roots all along their buried stem. A deeper plant means a stronger root system, means more fruit. Step 4. Train to 1 or 2 stems from the beginning. Remove suckers regularly, except the one below the first flower cluster. Step 5. Water deeply, but not daily. Let the soil dry out slightly between waterings. Train those roots to go deep. Step 6. Feed correctly by stage. Balanced fertilizer early, low nitrogen, high phosphorus and potassium once flowering starts, eggshells throughout the season, Epsom salt once a month during production. Step 7. Remove lower leaves as the plant grows. Keep that bottom 12 inches clear. Airflow is your disease prevention. That's it. 7 steps. No greenhouse, no expensive equipment, no chemistry degree. Just a little knowledge applied consistently, and your plant will do the rest.
Here's something I want you to think about. The tomato plant is one of the most generous plants on earth. Give it sun, give it structure, feed it right, and it will give back to you more than you ever imagined possible. 300 tomatoes from a single plant isn't a fantasy. It's the natural result of working with the plant instead of against it. People who grow tomatoes this way stop buying them at the store entirely. They give bags of tomatoes to their neighbors. They make their own sauce. They freeze them for winter. They eat fresh tomatoes every single day for 3 to 4 months straight, and it costs them almost nothing. That's the life that's available to you, starting this season. If you want to go deeper, I'm going to put a video right here that covers how to build the perfect raised bed for tomatoes, including the exact soil mix that took me years to figure out. That video alone will change how everything grows in your garden. And if this video helped you today, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet. It genuinely helps this channel keep making content like this. Now go plant something.